Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Salt Lake City School District Board of Education meeting on August 1st, 2023. The time is 4:34 p.m., and it's something that the board needs to have a closed session. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I move that on August 1st, 2023, the board go into closed session to discuss the deployment of security personnel, devices, or systems.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, Ashley with the motion, Christy with a second. We'll go ahead and vote, starting with Precinct 1. Bryce Williams, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
All right, the motion passes. We're going to go ahead and go into a closed session. We'll excuse... Oh, Nate, Board President Salazar just joined in. Nate, do you want to make your vote for closed session?
I vote yes.
All right, that passes. We'll go ahead and move into closed session. We'll excuse the public at this time.
It's crazy. This is the second person this week with strep. I heard about because that's what, yeah, must be going on.
Alan, do we have extra chairs?
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining for the public portion of our board meeting tonight. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I've asked Alan Kearsley, Business Administrator, to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone in attendance and watching online tonight. I would also like to recognize our association presidents who are here or watching remotely, including James Tobler, representing the SLCSD, the Salt Lake Education Association, and I think I see Mike Harmon here as well. Thank you, Mike. As well as Dr. Brie DeLeon, representing the Salt Lake Association of School Administrators, SLCSD, and I believe Kessler Green is here. Right there. Thank you. Also, Whitney Fava, representing the Salt Lake Education Office Personnel Association, or SLEOPA. Cindy Davis, representing the Salt Lake Transportation Association. Elia Ocampo, representing the Buildings and Grounds Association. And Tanya Slaughter, representing Child Nutrition. So our first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. And Board Member Anderson has requested that we remove item I from the consent agenda and place it on the action agenda. So I would motion to approve the consent agenda excluding item I.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion from Board Member Sweat, a second from Board Member Anderson. We'll go ahead and vote starting with Precinct 3.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes. Okay, that has been approved. Thank you. We are now in the part of our agenda for the request to speak. Board members, we've had a number of people who have shown up to address the board, and currently our public comment section is full. Given the number of people here tonight, would the board like to extend the time allowed for public comment in accordance with our B2 administrative procedure? The board does have a hard stop at 6:55 p.m. tonight, and figuring the other necessary items on the agenda, the maximum time the board could add would be about 25 minutes, but that would most likely necessitate board members and superintendent forgoing their board or superintendent report. Board members, do you have thoughts on that, on moving forward with that?
Extend it past the go to 25 minutes or 25 minutes plus 15 minutes?
Adding 25 minutes to
the 15.
Yes, for a total of 40.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Anybody have any hesitation to such? Okay, in that case, then we will go ahead and do that. Thank you for giving approval for that. Before we go into the request to speak, I do have a statement the board has asked me to read to the public. So the board enjoys the opportunity to hear from the public during the comment portion of its meetings. Before we begin, again, I'll read our statement. Time may not be used to air complaints concerning bidding, contracts, employment, or personnel issues, to criticize or defame district employees, or to make complaints for which other avenues for redress exist. 2, time may not be used by employees or their representatives to circumvent formal communication channels or establish grievance or negotiation procedures. And 3, the total time reserved for public comment, we've moved to extend that. Each person who is on the agenda to speak will have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. I'd also like to explain that unless a speaker's topic is already on the agenda, state law prohibits the board from deliberating or taking action on items raised during the public comment period. However, if it seems appropriate to the circumstances, I may direct the district staff to follow up with the speaker on the topic discussed. So with that, we'll go ahead and go down the list, and I apologize if I mess up anyone's names. First, we'll start with Alex Yiannopoulos. Yes, please. Thank you, Brian. All right, Alex, you have 3 minutes.
I want to thank the board and Dr. Grant for allowing me the time to speak today. My name is Alex Yiannopoulos, and my son is a student at Emerson Elementary, and my daughter attended Wasatch Elementary K through 6. Like all parents, I was perplexed to hear Emerson and Wasatch are 2 of the 7 schools selected for further study about possible closure, and the thought of any children in the district facing further disruptions and damage to their mental health only a couple years after the pandemic is disheartening. Why is Emerson on this list? It's curious because Emerson is at 85% capacity, second highest in the district. District-wide in the last 7 school years, Emerson saw the second lowest decline in enrollment for in-boundary students. And over the next 10 years, Emerson is projected to have the second lowest decline in in-boundary student population. Was this entire study not based on population and boundary enrollment data? This data shows Emerson is not an empty school or in a neighborhood of families in exodus, and Emerson has full enrollment currently and will in the future. Emerson is a right-sized school with 6 out of 7 grades adhering to the definition of a right-sized school that was presented at the last board meeting. For the building itself, Emerson's energy use intensity score is better than 8 newer buildings. And academically, Emerson's language arts, math, and science growth over the last 5 years was the 6th highest out of all the schools in the district. With this data about Emerson's enrollment, building energy efficiency, and academic performance, why did the committee give Emerson the 4th lowest score out of all schools? Because the building is old? Emerson is only 3 years older than I am, and I don't consider myself vintage quite yet. The amount of weight the building age carried in this study about population and boundaries is nonsense. The process of awarding points by the committee was totally flawed and disproportionately burdened schools with older buildings such as Emerson and Wasatch to the point the scores are asinine. Emerson and likewise Wasatch are true community schools that are more than just a building made of brick. We are engaged, vibrant, diverse, and involved. I'll end that. It's frustrating that the 2 most affluent precincts in the district, above 1300 East, precincts 6 and 7, have 0 schools up for consideration, while Emerson's precinct 5 has 3 schools. Affluent neighborhoods where in-boundary students are rapidly declining because families are being priced out should not receive preferential treatment, and this glaring wealth bias by the Population and Boundary Committee is not overlooked.
Alex, We will move on to the next person on our list, which is Julia Lyon. Thank you, Julia. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight. Can you hear me? My name is Julia Lyon. I'm a Wasatch parent and now a West ELP parent, as well as a former newspaper reporter who covered education in 2 states, including this district. I'm going to tell you a quick story about an evening last February at the Rose Wagner Theater. The audience is filled with Utah legislators. The 34th graders in yellow t-shirts come on stage and to the sounds of cello music transform into the roots and branches of Pando, the largest living organism in the world, which, as you probably know, is a grove of aspen trees in Utah. These kids from Wasatch Elementary were magical. My son told me they were dancing for all the kids in Utah to show the legislators how important the arts can be. Tonight, I want to try to be as persuasive as those 4th graders. The district has rated these 7 schools based on several metrics, including whether they had a special program. According to your data, Wasatch Elementary has no special program at all. I strongly disagree. Wasatch has an arts integrated curriculum which is unique in our district and probably in our state. At Wasatch, every single child receives instruction in dance, drama, music, and visual arts from kindergarten on up. That instruction culminates in what we call a town meeting or a play that each classroom presents each year. Every one of these is rooted in the curriculum, whether it's about the solar system, the Oregon Trail, or George Washington. Wasatch's program gives every child an opportunity to be seen on the walls, on stage, in the classroom, no matter what their background or where they live. They become confident communicators, collaborators, and creative thinkers. I want to ask the board, please show me by your hands, who has attended one of our town meetings? One of you. Who has attended our Spring Arts Showcase when the school is transformed into a multimedia art gallery showcasing every student in the school? One of you. Then it's our job to educate you about what makes Wasatch special. It's easy to say the school's arts program could be plopped down in another school, but I do not believe that's possible. As Brian Conley told you at your last meeting, schools are not just buildings. They are communities, and our community will be broken if Wasatch closes. Parents and teachers will be scattered across the district. Generations of institutional knowledge and community involvement will be lost. Wasatch draws kids and families from all over the Salt Lake Valley. Do we want to drive those families away? Or do we want to grow Wasatch and give more students the opportunity to benefit from an arts-based education? I am a product of the Maryland Public Schools, and every building I ever went to was falling apart. There were pigeons flying through the halls of my high school. My elementary school was built during the Works Progress administration. After I left, as enrollment declined, the district wanted to close my elementary school. Families and neighbors spoke up about the incredible educators and school community. The district listened. The school was rebuilt and now draws kids from many different neighborhoods. Today, that school is thriving. So tonight, I ask you board members, please be visionary. Be as creative as we ask the students to be at Wasatch. Let's give more kids a chance to benefit from the exceptional arts-based education at Wasatch Elementary.
Time.
Please keep Wasatch open.
Thank you, Julia. Next on the list is Ann, and I'm sorry, Bialowas. I'm sorry, Ann.
It happens.
Thank you, Ann.
Yes.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you all. I know we're all here because we have passion for public education. Personally, I'm a professor teaching at a state public university, and I am a parent of 2 children. As board members, I know you also have passion for education because I checked what salaries you make for doing this position, and you're not doing it for the money. So thank you for your efforts at this difficult time. One of the few things I want to touch upon is transparent communication. I feel like there has been a lack of transparent communication. The process is not clear. The dissemination of information is a problem. Principals at schools are not able to communicate to all members of the school, as I've been disconnected from receiving emails from my own principal, and I am also having difficulties registering my child. I know there's difficulties on that online, but this is stressful. Another term I've been hearing a lot is data-driven. As a term for data-driven, it gives me pause because the district came up with the rubric, scored the rubric, and even determines what programs get placed where and scores accordingly. The numbers look like they say something, but if we picked different numbers, would it tell a different story? With only 13 people scoring, is this really a full picture? This feels like a district-driven, not a data-driven neutral analysis. For example, sustainability is mainly defined as solar, but sustainability could also be defined as air quality. With the configuration of closing Wasatch, Emerson, Hawthorne, and Benyon, that section of the city will have major transportation issues. If somebody has a car, maybe they will drive. If the district can hire bus drivers, then you will bus them all over and creating more air pollution. Furthermore, this population downtown are some of our more vulnerable populations. And this does not feel like what the district claims, which is excellence and equity. Every student, every classroom, every day. So, for me, I do have children that attend Wasatch, and in spite of there being no special programs like CNA, ELP, and Magnet, Wasatch consistently enrolls more students above and beyond what the boundaries predict. But it feels like based on this rubric, this is being evaluated as a negative and not a positive. The cost per student at Wasatch is $9,822, below the recommended recent state audit where the state average was $12,295. There has to be some learning success happening at Wasatch that doesn't fit in your rubric, and I hope that you're open to learning more about it. As Julia previously mentioned, there is the arts integration. Our theater partnership was just awarded at the Arts Festival by the mayor. The location is equipped. We have partnerships proven to help unsheltered families, recovery programs, refugees, and many other English language learners. I hope you can listen and keep Wasatch open. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Next, we have Joey McNamee.
Hi.
All right, you have 3 minutes. Hi there.
Is my time starting?
As soon as you start.
I'm ready. Okay. Hi, I'm Joey McNamee, Emerson Elementary SCC chair and mom of soon-to-be 2nd and 5th graders. I'm here because our beloved Emerson Elementary is on the potential chopping block, and we don't have a clear reason why. District policy requires the review of 12 factors when closing schools, and we don't have transparency from the district about how those factors have been applied, as you've heard here tonight already. The Emerson community has been poring over these data, and here's what we see. Factor 1, federal and state mandates, not applicable. Factor 2, school feeder patterns, not much to discuss here just yet. Factor 3, financial implications. Critically important to this conversation, but district documents state it's almost impossible to estimate per pupil spending due to special programs and Title I funding. 4, facilities. Emerson is older and smaller than some schools, but has an adequate number of classrooms to meet the district's target per grade, and the school was built with efficiency in mind and has the 6th lowest utility cost per pupil in the district. 5, district geography. Closing both Hawthorne and Emerson guts the Central Sugar House neighborhood. 6, school enrollment. Emerson has high overall enrollment and a slower rate of decline in neighborhood enrollment compared to other schools not on the list. 7, transportation. Emerson's location promotes walking and biking to school, which enhances safety, improves health, and builds community. 8, student safety. Over half the schools on the list for closure sit in a row along the city center. If they all close, as many as 1,000 kids will have to cross major traffic arteries, 7th East, 13th East, or South Temple to get to school each day. 9, demographics. Not one school in our top 25% of our district's wealthiest communities is considered for closure. 1 in 4 schools may close across the district, but our wealthy communities are bearing none of that burden. 10, community input. I learned the Emerson community submitted more responses to the district survey than the rest of the schools combined, yet we don't see any evidence that that feedback has been incorporated into the district's recommendations. 11, special programs. A disability hub was moved to Emerson just a few years ago with assurances to that community they wouldn't be moved again. These vulnerable learners and their families deserve the stability they were promised. 12, student educational opportunities. Emerson is a nationally recognized blue ribbon school with a 3 of 3 rating from the district for student achievement. Overall, the district appears to have heavily weighted building age while undervaluing factors like student performance, community impact, equity, and safety. Board members, you can intervene. You can remove Emerson from the list of schools to be studied for closure or tell the district to reevaluate which schools should be closed. At a minimum, you can require easy public access to both the data and the real conversations about this decision. If schools are going to close, we deserve to know why. Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on. Next on the list is Jen O'Carson. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
It's Jen Oscarson. Thank
Oscarson,
you very
thank you,
much.
Jen. Names are important, thank you.
Yes. Gosh, it's hard to follow these people. But hi, I'm Jen Oscarson, and I am a transplant. I moved here maybe 5 years ago or so with my family. We have a 3-year-old, or a first grader and a third grader at the time we moved. We chose the avenues because of the single family homes, the multifamily homes, the culture, the community, all the different things, the renters, the homeowners. It's a good verse for us in coming in as an outsider. And luckily, at the time, we could afford it. And so now today, here I am going to look at this empty school. I'm going to miss the kids walking to school. I'm going to miss the laughter. I'm going to miss the growing up of our kids learning how to kind of find their independence, walking home, staying after for the school-sponsored plays that Miss Pennywood puts on. You know, just all of it that comes with a community like ours, that you come together, you have Halloween carnivals, end-of-year carnivals, and there's people from the private schools that come, there's people from the local neighboring schools that come, and our community. We are a true community at Wasatch. And with that, it just shocked me when I was learning so much more about the Salt Lake City School District. And one of the things that I would just like to say is that I looked just at the documents, the data, and I said, well, how is this possible that Ensign and Wasatch have the same transportation score? One, you walk up a mountain, one is right on a major bus line. Just blows me away that, I mean, just on the surface, there's certain things that just are not true. They say Wasatch, incapable for solar. We have a whole south-facing field in Mr. Salazar's district that could, go ahead and take some ownership. We could build a community center. We could have solar that powers the whole city in that field. So I don't buy what I'm reading. And doing that, it forced me as a citizen and as a parent to ask some tough questions, I think. And those questions become, why is an open records request necessary for such a big decision? We should have all of this on the website. I don't understand. Knowing what closing schools has done to our neighborhoods in the rest of the country, why are we following suit? Why are we not innovators in this? Why are we not looking at public-private partnerships? We have amazing land that you guys have all identified. The right size means closing 7 schools. You listed 7 schools. I mean, what is that going to do to our test scores, our enrollment, our morale this year? It's wrong what you guys are doing as far as that goes. And I just ask for the accountability and transparency and equity. Thank you.
All right, next up is Debbie Hummel.
Hello, I'm Debbie Hummel. I'm the PTA president at Wasatch Elementary and also a product entirely of Utah Public Schools. I'm saddened and baffled that Wasatch Elementary is on the initial list of schools that the Salt Lake City School District is considering closing. Wasatch is home to an inclusive, strong, and successful school community. It is a sought-after school that has consistently brought in out-of-boundary and out-of-district families. It is a school with a track record of high academic achievement and a commitment to arts-based education that breeds creative and collaborative students across all disciplines. We have a proven track record. Wasatch is the school most equipped to accept more students who live closer to downtown. We have a proven track record of serving unsheltered families, those who reside in nearby recovery programs, shelters, refugee families, and other English language learners whose parents are enrolled in programs at the University of Utah or with positions at the U or at Research Park. Its location makes it an easy drop-off during all kinds of weather for parents headed to work in the city's employment hubs. The new turn lane on East-South Temple prevents traffic backups during pickups and drop-offs. We have our lovely tunnel that makes a connection under South Temple that is safer for students. It is easily walkable, bikeable, and along several accessible UTA bus routes. Looking at data provided by the district, I see that in addition to having more students enrolled at the school than live in the school boundary, Wasatch also costs less money per pupil to do so. If this is about enrollment and money, why is Wasatch on this list? If it is about the building, I cannot go back in time and urge past school boards and past superintendents and past district employees to be more forward-thinking about which schools were updated. These metrics about enrollment have been known for decades. I wish I could fight for Wasatch getting more updates in recent years. It's been a vibrant school this whole time, but I can urge this board not to make a poor choice in closing a school that adds nothing but good to the reputation of Salt Lake City schools. Furthermore, with Benyon Elementary also on this list, I think Wasatch's location is key to having a sustainable neighborhood school. Wasatch is held in high regard as a Salt Lake City school. I'm aware of the position the district finds itself in, with shifting demographics, fewer students per building, and a need to downsize. However, Wasatch is exactly the kind of school that the district should be promoting as a success, working to maintain, and encouraging its community of committed and active parents who believe in public education as a public good. To do anything otherwise is to harm the future of all Salt Lake District schools. Thank you.
Next on the list, we have Josh Leonard. Be careful with that.
Those wheels.
First off, I want to thank the board for your time and hearing these comments, and in your position on the board, I know it's a large commitment, so thank you for the time you give. My name is Dr. Joshua Leonard. I am a parent at Emerson and PTA member, and I'll say it came as a shock to everybody within our neighborhood when we learned Emerson was on the list of elementary schools slated for potential closure. And the shock came not for the obvious reasons. It's great programs like the ELP, special ed, it's National Blue Ribbon School, as was mentioned. The fact that one of its teachers just last year was nominated by this district Teacher of the Year, Jennifer Colonna. Another teacher helped his students, Josh Kramer, successfully lobby the legislature for designation of a state crustacean. But rather, the shock came because Emerson truly lies at the heart of our community. Salt Lake, in my opinion, is roughly divided into two types of people. On the one hand, there are those who live on its benches and further outreaches and don't mind driving. They're forced to commute. They drive their kids to school and they drop them off, and it's a commonplace action. On the other hand, other types of Salt Lake residents really hate to drive. They don't have to unless they have to. I feel like a lot of people in central part of this city are of that ilk, and Emerson residents are no different. Straddled between 9th and 9th and downtown Sugar House, ours is one of the most walkable, bikeable communities in any of the 27 schools listed in the district. I challenge anyone on the board to visit Emerson on any day of any month. Rain or shine, you'll find families walking kids to school, kids walking by themselves. It's great. I walk my daughter every day. To live in an urban center like we do and have this ability, walking our children to a great school where we've come to know and trust its teachers and the community members, this is unique in this day and age. And as development encroaches from all around this valley, we have in Emerson a gathering place to meet and visit with neighbors as we send our children to be educated in a truly great environment. Our communities have other ways of drawing neighbors and neighborhoods together, be it a ward or a sports complex. And yet Emerson is unique in that it acts as the meeting place. For Emerson to close and to ship our kids here and there like so many stalks in the wind will literally degrade and fracture our community that everyone in this room has helped to build. And I'll just add as a final thought, the way that the district has identified the central part of this city feels a lot like the way in which the federal congressional district has divided our community thus already, and it would be a shame to further exacerbate the divide that really is at the heart geographically and metaphorically of Salt Lake City. Thank you.
Next up, we have Rachel David. Thank you, Rachel.
Hello. My name is Rachel David, and I appreciate you adding additional time to be willing to hear more of us and what we have to say. I think you should take into consideration the number of people that showed up today, not only from the two schools that have been represented thus far, but also many of our worries, issues, and considerations go to those other schools that for various reasons don't have the parents that have the capacity to represent themselves here today. I'm reaching out to you as a concerned parent and as a neighbor, but also as a sustainable building expert in this community with over 20 years experience with LEED, Energy Star, Green Globes, and other high performance and energy efficient buildings. I commend the efforts of Salt Lake School District to become more sustainable, especially with the planned constructions of the two new high schools. However, Emerson Elementary and some of the other school closures that have been recommended for exploration do not align with the sustainable goals of the district. Working with your own sustainability action plan that was published in September 2021, Emerson may be an older structure, but because of upkeep and improvements, it is in the top energy efficient buildings. When sorted for utility costs, Emerson has the 6th lowest utility cost of any elementary school in the district. When sorted for emissions, Emerson has the 5th lowest emissions per student of all elementaries. When sorted by energy use, Emerson has the 12th lowest EUI of elementary schools in the district, which is comparable to miles per gallon for a building. When sorted for water use, Emerson has the 9th lowest water use of all elementary schools in the district. All of the above energy efficiency and performance data was compiled prior to the installation of PV panels or photovoltaic panels on the roof earlier this year, which would only improve the efficiency and lower the emissions of the building. In reviewing the brief data that was released by the district, a local financial analyst that I consulted with stated that this information had been managed information, data that had been manipulated and presented in a manner to support a predetermined result, and the additional data needed to truly make a valid review of this data had simply not been provided. For example, cost per student is not clear. What does this include? Is it staff only? Staff only should be reviewed as the specialty programs, such as special needs programs that require additional staff. It doesn't take into account staff that have been there for a number of years because of the quality of a school and therefore are higher paid and have higher seniority. It has already been discussed, the school districts and the precincts that do not have any schools recommended for closure. Not only does this appear biased and inappropriate, but locking these schools in one area minimizes the options you have for redistricting. I have much more to say, but I appreciate your consideration keeping Emerson open.
Thank you, Rachel. And our final individual for comment tonight would be Star Adams. Thank you, Star. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. A couple thoughts there I just wanted to share about children. It was mentioned, I'm with Emerson Elementary, and children walking home from school. For the last 15 years, my children have walked to and from school by themselves at Emerson Elementary. I've had 5 daughters at Emerson Elementary. I've had siblings at Emerson Elementary, my mother, my grandmother, in the last 129 years history of Emerson Elementary. Emerson Elementary is definitely a neighborhood school, one that we feel comfortable to have our children walk to and from by themselves. This last year I had my 3rd grader walking to and from school by herself, but I felt comfortable doing that. There was multiple other families who had their children walking home. We've had a walking school bus that goes by. I've had 5 daughters in the Salt Lake City School District, 2 who have graduated and 3 who are still in it. Some of our concerns are equity. The proposed closure are not distributed throughout the district, and the top 25% wealthiest schools are not affected. Additionally, a block of 4 schools in a row through Central Salt Lake are proposed for closure, which will unfairly burden our community. Number 2, safety. A majority of Emerson children walk or bike to school, often out of necessity. Redistricting of the Emerson boundaries will result in much longer walking distances, often across busy 7th East or up snowy Icy Hill. My daughter, I told her she may have to take a sled to be able to get home from Uinta as she slides down the hill. Number 3, community. Emerson hosts a Spanish immersion ELP program along with a diverse student body and community that embodies and embraces cultures. This has been shown in the highly supported Dia de los Muertos celebration and education throughout the entire student body. As my kids were growing up, I couldn't wait till they could go to Emerson. I would see their activities outside, and I'd see their carnivals, and we would walk by, we'd play on the playground, and the community is so gracious there. And come, you don't have to have a student here yet. It is definitely a good neighborhood community for us. Number 4, impact on marginalized groups. Emerson closure results in moving the Behavioral Hub program. This program is specialized to behavior and physical disabilities. Relocating would be detrimental to students that don't adjust to changes easily. Number 5, quality not represented in data. Emerson operates near district desired numbers. We have 468 students. The district goal is 475. This includes 91 students that choose Emerson over their local school. This speaks to the community and culture of Emerson.
Thank you.
We would like some transparency of why Emerson. Thank you.
Thank you, Star. So that concludes our public comment period for tonight, and I know on behalf of the board, we'd like to thank everyone for being here to speak. Thank you so much. Before we go ahead and move on to our discussion agenda, I did have one thing I failed to mention at the beginning of the meeting. Board President Nate Salazar is joining us remotely tonight, is feeling a little under the weather, but wanted to recognize that he is here listening, so thank you for that. We will go ahead and move on to our discussion agenda. The first item on the discussion agenda is board calendar updates. So board members, a couple of different things you have in front of you and in your board packet, a list of dates through the remainder of the fiscal year. A couple of items that we do need to discuss tonight is that a while back we had talked about the meetings in November. And currently those meetings would be November 7th and November 21st. As we know, with the Congressional District 2 election, that has changed a little bit. So recognizing that we do need to have a second meeting in November, if the board approves further study of this list, it would be should be known that that would be a night for public comment as well. So that is something that we need to seriously consider, and we can kind of have that conversation now and see if folks have particular thoughts.
So will you,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm trying to find my calendar. So November 7th and the 21st, are you saying both? Explain to me, tell me what we're changing then?
Yep. So in a previous board meeting, we had talked about changing that particular date. Knowing the conversation around consolidation and closure, there's 2 meetings that would have public comment. The concern is that with the 21st being a board meeting and the night of an election, that maybe folks would not have the opportunity to come and speak. So deciding if we're moving forward with that, if we need to come up with an alternative date, that's kind of the conversation to be had. Yes, the other thank you, Superintendent Grant. One option was potentially moving the second board meeting in November to the 20th, which would be a Monday evening, to potentially accommodate that.
So did we
Or
not?
we can move ahead.
Okay, so what about the 14th? Just having two board meetings back to back? Is that why you were thinking not to do it, because they would be back to back?
I don't think there was any particular that was just
reason?
a suggestion. But it might give us a little more time if we were to have it on the 20th, just between agenda setting and different items on the agenda. I'll give it a second to see if anyone... So looking for direction if we want to move forward with the 21st or the 20th. We also have one other item to discuss with calendaring as well.
So I'll make a motion and then you can discuss it, right? I mean, is that what you're looking
And-
for?
Yes, but I do believe President Salazar has his
Oh,
hand
okay,
up as
great,
well. I
go
just
ahead.
want to see President Salazar.
Yeah, I'd like to suggest that perhaps we make a motion to conduct our meeting on the 20th of November in order to give the time that we would need between the two meetings, knowing that there is the potential for further discussion and planning around the population and boundary study.
Board Member Sweat, did you?
That's fine. So I move that we change our second meeting in November to Monday, November 20th.
Do we have a?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, so we'll go ahead and take a vote.
Well, you
Oh,
discussed.
sorry. Let's discuss. I'm so sorry. Any discussion?
Oh, yeah, sorry, that was my
Thank you.
fault. So, yeah, anyway, I changed my motion that we move this to action,
Okay.
that we would change our date from November 21st to the 20th.
Do we have a second? Okay, Board Member Anderson with a second. So we'll go ahead and vote on moving to action, starting with Precinct 4 and President Salazar.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Okay, we now have that on action, so any discussion? Seeing none, okay, we will go ahead and vote on changing our date from November 21st to November 20th.
I move that we accept the item
Yes, I'm sorry.
as noted on action.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we'll go ahead and take a vote, starting with Board Member Board Member Bade, I'm sorry.
Mohammed, yes.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Okay, that passes. A couple other things in regards to calendaring. The other item is in regards to the August 15th meeting that is currently on our calendar. There is discussion of canceling that meeting for a variety of different reasons, so we can have a discussion on that. We traditionally have not had a second board meeting in August.
But I do have a couple of questions about that.
Sure.
It was on the calendar, and so many of us, as we were planning our schedules, have looked at that, and it's on the calendar. And if there is a need for a meeting, I think it might be wise to consider having that. And the reason that I am raising this is I had made a request, but President Salazar and you felt like we didn't have enough time to discuss it in today's meeting because of the public, the truth in taxation, and then we also have this very important item. But we do have, with the Utah School Boards Association and the Superintendents Association, we have a delegate assembly that is on the 26th of August. And at that assembly, there will be priorities that will be presented that will need to be voted on. And they will be voted on by all of the school districts in the state. And I think that it's important for us to have had an opportunity at some time to discuss whether we can accept those priorities as they are, or if we have concerns with some, so that the delegates that have been appointed, and Ashley Anderson and Mohammed Bayed, you are the delegates that would be representing us. And for me, if I was a delegate at that assembly, I would want to have the direction of the board in how to proceed with voting. So I don't think that that's a very long conversation, but I'm just trying to figure out where we can have an opportunity to discuss that, because I think that that's valuable.
Thank you for that. Board Member Sweat?
So actually what you're asking is it's already on our calendar. So unless it's asked to be taken off, we just move on.
Correct. That's correct. Any other?
Do you need formal action to move on, or we should just leave it on the
I don't
calendar
believe
for
we
various
have it.
reasons?
It's already on the
discussed?
calendar,
we
so I
just leave
believe
it in
we
calendar.
President Salazar?
I'm fine maintaining the 15th board meeting.
Okay, I think we have a feel that we're going to go ahead and continue on with that, so thank you for the conversation around that. One other item in calendaring, as board members, as you know, we've been looking forward to having a retreat for several months now. Looking at the poll that has been filled out, we're looking at a recommendation, and I just lost it, oh yes, right here, of September 19th from 8 to 12. Do note that we do have a board meeting that evening, but hopefully that would be convenient since that's already on the calendar. Discussion around that. That's a Tuesday, September 19th, 8 a.m. till noon.
I move that we add September 19th to our calendar to action.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Race.
So motion by Board Member Sweat, second by Board Member Anderson. We'll go ahead and take a vote on moving to action, starting with Board Member Jensen.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Okay, that is now on action. Any discussion? Seeing it none, I will go ahead and take accept a motion to approve the calendar for board retreat on September 19th.
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Board Member Sweat, second by Board Member Jensen. We'll go ahead and take a vote, starting with Board Member Sweat in Precinct 7.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Okay, that has passed. Thank you so much.
Vice President Williams.
Yes.
I do have one thing that I'd like to address on the calendar.
Yes, please.
So it's not an open and public meeting. That's what this calendar is for, because we'd have to notice the retreat. But we do not have to notice the USBA annual conference or the NSBA annual conference. So those should actually not be on this on these calendars.
Thank you for that point of information. We'll make note and adjust that. Okay, thank you for that. Next, we will go ahead and move on to the second item on our discussion agenda. That is the Boundary Options Committee recommendation. And I will go ahead and turn the time over to Superintendent Grant, who would like to start the discussion.
I want to start first by thanking the parents for being here and for participating and lending your voices to the conversation. We have received a great deal of comment, and it matters for the conversation ahead. I also want to note that my mom actually took sleds down the hill from 13th East toward Emerson back in the day, I think when we had more snow. I'm going to start with just an introduction to where we are right now based on the presentation from 2 weeks ago. Those of you in the room are familiar with this information, but I think it's important for us to have this on the table. At our July 11th board meeting, Brian Connolly, our Boundary and Planning Director, presented the Boundary Options Committee report and recommendations. We know the student population of the Salt Lake City School District, like districts around this state and around the country, is decreasing. The district elementary school enrollment dropped nearly 30% over the last 8 years, from 12,431 students to 9,602 students. This has left us with a number of schools that are very small. When an elementary school is too small, it can be less effective and less efficient. In considering boundary options and school closures, our aim is to provide quality district programs and opportunities for all students, to provide ongoing educator learning so our classrooms reflect best teaching practices, to exercise fiduciary responsibility, and to demonstrate sustainability and environmental responsibilities. Right-sizing our schools is important and is based on the neighborhood school account of what right-sizing means. With fewer schools, we have more funds available per student through the efficiencies of reducing building administration costs and leveraging pools of funding for students. We are essentially increasing the funding per student by being more efficient in our allocation of resources. Right-sizing a school means that the school can provide options for students in neighborhood classroom groupings, teacher collaboration to support student learning, and choices for our families at each grade level. A school that is right-sized can sustain a variety of support and enrichment activities. As per the administrative policy guiding our actions, the Boundary Options Committee looked carefully and holistically at all 27 elementary schools in our district. The committee was made up of 13 members appointed by Interim Superintendent Bates according to the policy, and they are a team of administrators, more than half of whom were teachers, and more than half had been school administrators. Together, they have detailed knowledge of our schools and our buildings and our programs. They represent departments within the district, including school leadership and performance, transportation, teaching and learning, education support, early childhood, IT, buildings and grounds, business services. Following the policy, the committee looked carefully at the schools and at the many considerations in the policy, including, as many parents have noted tonight, the residential enrollment, the facility capacity and design, feeder patterns, demographics, student safety, transportation, geographic features, and the programs that are in the school that are district-wide, including these special programs. They gathered community feedback and questions from dozens of meetings and information sessions. Every school was reviewed in good faith using these full criteria. The committee then rated schools under the categories designated in our policy that the viable options for further study represent changes that are safe, reasonable, simple, and cost-effective. I'd like to note that even in the difficult process of considering closing schools, we are looking to open new pathways and opportunities for our students. In the years ahead, we can open pathways to additional advanced academic programs. We can build career pathway programs in our upper grades that increase student internship and apprenticeship programs. We can build additional early college and concurrent enrollment programs and create pathways for our students into further training and study after high school graduation. As is on the screen right now, the Boundary Option Committee came forward with 3 recommendations to the board at the July 11th meeting. The first one is that the board approves the following 7 schools for further study for potential long-term closure: Emerson, Hawthorne, M. Lynn Benyon, Mary W. Jackson, Newman, Riley, and Wasatch. The second recommendation is that the board approves the remaining 20 district elementary schools for further study for potential boundary adjustment. The third recommendation following board policy is that the board approves the district holding 4 information sessions in September and October throughout different areas of the city. I want to just spend a moment quickly to talk about what next steps would look like should the board approve further study of the schools. If the board moves forward to do so, we will provide multiple opportunities for the community to provide feedback and input. First, we will hold public information sessions in the months of September and the month of October, and we will confirm the dates and times if the board moves forward. Second, during our 2 board meetings in the month of November, there will be dedicated time for public comment. At the first board meeting in November, Brian Connolly will provide feedback on the information sessions for board consideration, and there will be extended time for public comment. At the second board meeting in November, the recommended options for boundary changes and potential long-term school closures will be placed as a discussion item on the board agenda. There will also be extended time for public comment. Third, in December, a public hearing will be held as part of the board's agenda, and the recommended options for potential boundary changes and long-term school closure will be again placed on the board's discussion agenda. Fourth, we will continue to share all public comments to the board, particularly those it's helpful for us, not just if they are emailed, but if they are also submitted through our boundary and population study page on our website. On that side is a red notice button that asks for comments. The second thing, after naming these opportunities for community feedback and input, is that the district will, if this moves forward, present our approach to further study to the board at the September 5th board meeting. The district will also begin, should we move forward, shall also begin planning for possible transition for schools and communities that may change based on school closure and boundary changes. This will include determining services and programs, schedules, and transportations for possible new configurations. If schools are to close and boundaries adjusted, we will work with all of our schools to make a successful transition. We will purposely begin that transition planning process early so that it is as smooth as possible. With that, Vice President Williams, I turn that to you.
Thank you, Superintendent Grant. We can go ahead and open to board discussion. Board members, I do want to remind that we do have time limits for discussion, starting with each board member having up to 3 minutes as we all go around. So we'll go ahead and open that up now. Yep, Board Member Anderson.
I'll start by saying that I do carefully read all of the emails I receive from many of you here. I recognize your names and then I can see your face. And I read everything as well via the digital form. And as I process those comments, I know closure is theoretically divided by precincts, but I've learned that there are many families who may have one student in an ELP program at Hawthorne and another student at Wasatch, or they may live in my precinct but participate in the hub at Emerson. And so each board member represents teachers and administrators from impacted schools who live in our boundaries, and our precinct boundaries don't fully align with school boundaries. So we all have various degrees of crossover that give voice to the complexity of our need to vote today. And most importantly, it means I can't treat my precinct as a fiefdom, because if we each focused on removing future study from our precinct, we wouldn't be doing our job. So given the nature of the audit and the legislature's past policy aims for our school district in particular, it's important to me that we accept the staff's recommendation to study all the schools as an act of good faith. We're taking the state's charge seriously. In the last meeting, I expressed misgivings about the geographic limitations of the 7 schools before us, and those misgivings have not vanished. But it's my hope that studying all 7 schools is what will give the Boundary Options Committee the latitude to create the most options possible, perhaps finding that some schools are not recommended for closure at the conclusion of the process. It will also allow us to find multiple pathways where potentially impacted communities feel there are positive long-range plans and a real vision from the district for their community, whether or not that outcome happens in their current building. In the community feedback, a parent of a preschooler in the Emerson boundary rightly pointed out that many of the areas on the list are areas being deliberately gentrified by the city. And indeed, the demographic reports presented to past boards show that gentrification by specifically RDA project areas has been a significant driver of our declining enrollment over time. So while the decision about this study list is the board's, I want to express that our path was paved by the City Council and the RDA, as well as a legislative mandate before us. Keeping this in mind, I think many leaders at Wasatch, all the four who are here tonight, but also their school community council, have been very thoughtful in the public feedback about what the longest term future looks like, rather than simply what they think the votes may be after 120 days of additional study. I want to thank all the community members in Wasatch, specifically because it's in my precinct, but also everyone here and who shared their comments in the binder, for their proactive participation in what is obviously a challenging process. And despite my personal disappointment that Wasatch is on the list, I do want to move that we accept the recommendations to study the 7 schools named by the Boundary Options Committee. However, before languaging that precise motion, I want to add that this comes with the expectation that we have more frequent updates from the committee and that the board be apprised of the data and assessment tools being used by the committee at the outset of any ongoing study. In the early stage of the process, we did see criteria set forth as named in policy. I just have like one more paragraph, if that's okay. In next steps, that criteria should respond to the public feedback we've heard online and here tonight and be critically weighted with more detail, specifically from the aspect of facilities, walkability, and specialty programming, which have risen to the fore in the discussion. At the end of this process, all kids in this district deserve to be in an accessible, fully staffed building suitable for 21st century learning. And if we can agree on those goals and publicly share the discussion that will get us there, I would like to move that the board approve further study of the recommended list of viable options for potential long-term closure.
Board Member Anderson, I think
I
we want to
can't.
give the other folks the opportunity to chat as well.
Sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to give Board Member Sweat.
So I echo Ashley, what she has said tonight. I think that none of you really know me. I've been in this seat for a long time, but I have appreciated the emails, and I have, as like Ashley, have read all of them. It's so good to put names to those emails, so thank you for being here. I grew up as a military brat. We moved a lot. And when my husband and I got married, I said to him, I need roots. And so for the past 38 years, I have lived in the same neighborhood. And my children went to their neighborhood schools, Roslyn Heights, Hillside, and Highland. So I understand school closure. That's what brought me to this seat, was school closure. And being an author of that policy that we have in place now, we tried to look at all of the mistakes that were done in the past closures of our district, trying to find a way to make sure that we were as transparent as possible. You have brought up some excellent points tonight that I know that we will be forwarding on, as Ashley has been talking about. I want you to know I'm highly disappointed in the cry for help that we have been echoing for the past decade to the city about paying attention to our changing demographics, to affordable rents and housing for our families, safe walking routes, taking a master plan and blowing it up in concrete jungles where there is no thought of families or green space in those developments. It would be nice to see a partnership with the city as we're starting to move forward. I appreciate what the superintendent said tonight about looking for pathways and goals. That wasn't done 20 plus years ago. Schools were closed and they sat there emptied. I'm hoping that as we go forward through this, that we'll be able to work together as a community to decide what are our long-range goals, what are those pathways that we want our students to be involved in. At a glance, you may think that my precinct only encompasses certain schools, but I have Hawthorne families, and I've been attending Hawthorne School Community Council for 20 plus years. So I understand, that even though the Hawthorne families might not be here, I want you to know they have reached out. We have heard from them. All of us have heard from all 7 schools. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I want to thank my colleagues. I think that this is one of the hardest things. They've heard me say that I had always hoped that I would not be on the board during a boundary change or a school closure. That was something that was not that I wanted to be a part of, but here I am. And so I hope that through the things that we're talking about over the months that are ahead of us, that we'll be able to work together as a community, because we need to make our city schools viable. We need that. A city can't live without viable public schools.
Thank you, Board Member Sweat. Other board members? Board Member Bade?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all the families that emailed us, that texted us, that called us, and those that stopped me in the neighborhood and talked. It just like warms my heart to see the commitment of families to their neighborhood schools. This is not something that I grew up with, unfortunately, but I committed myself to be in this position here so we can make sure that our current generation and our future generation have better opportunities that I had growing. And I'm seeing it happening as I'm sitting here right now. So it pains me, it is correct, we do need to close some schools. It is correct, legislators are requiring from us to take action on this. It is correct that we do need to right-size our schools. It is correct that our population, student population, is decreasing. It is correct that our neighborhoods are being gentrified. It is correct that so many families are moving from our precinct and moving to other areas. And this is a matter, yes, it is a district matter, but at the same time, it is a precinct matter. Because when I received the call that 3 of schools in my precincts was really hard to swallow, I'm not gonna lie to you. And also looking at the map and seeing the list of schools that are gonna be closing, literally speaking, it's like putting a Berlin Wall that would separate the city, and that we should not allow such thing to be happening in our precinct, especially in our district. And so we talked about transparency. And, as I'm looking at the information that we received from families, I've learned so much from you. It is interesting that like every school in there is between 1976 to 2001. So there is an age component involved here. And I want to urge our district to be a little more, clear on that message. If there is an age of a school, say it. If there is not, say it. That's just simple as this. Also, in terms of a geographic inequity, we are not a district that we should continue to see that barrier of inequity. This is a district of people from all walks of life, and we need to make sure that happens. We talk about safety. We had so many kids that had accidents crossing 700. We had a child that died over at 1913th South. We had like so many kids, even just like in a regular neighborhood, that were hit as well.
Time.
And I'll finish my comments after, okay?
Board Member Jensen?
Yes. No, I want to thank all of you as well. And I'm echoing what the others have said, but I have read every one of those emails as well, and listened to voicemails, and have tried to respond to texts. There have been a lot of them, and I really appreciate your giving me your input, because you have raised very valuable pieces of information, but also concerns. For me, my duty is to ensure that all students in the Salt Lake City School District receive an excellent educational experience. I do represent my precinct, but my entire teaching career has been in a Title I school in Rose Park at Newman Elementary, which is on the proposed list of schools for further study. Of course, I'm concerned about those students and that community. I'm concerned about the Emerson community. I'm concerned about the Wasatch community. I'm concerned about the communities of all of those schools that are on the list. The challenge that I have is, before I even became a member of this board, the state legislature performed an audit on the Salt Lake City School District. And in that audit, they stated that the Salt Lake City School District was misusing taxpayer funds by not addressing the declining student enrollment and recognizing that schools needed to be closed. I think we have all acknowledged that we are faced with that dilemma, which doesn't mitigate the challenges of each of these communities. But for me, I have to follow the directions that I receive, and in one of those sections of the audit, they also told the board that we were not supposed to manage the school district. Well, to me, there's a policy, and the policy G5, Administrative Procedures, District Reconfiguration, and Long-Term School Closures, is what has to be followed. And I don't have it's not my prerogative to say, well, you know, that's the policy. So with my legal background, and I follow the policy. In regards to that policy, and I'll just take just a couple of minutes, an options committee was established. And for me, I am relying on the work that that options committee is doing. That was their job under the G5 procedures. I was told that this is how it would be followed. So I am really, and I want the options committee to hear this, because I think that there are significant questions that have been raised. And as I looked at the report that came out under the GRAMA, I mean, I have not had access to a lot of, well, that's what I've had access to, okay?
Bren, we're going to call time, and we'll come back a second round.
President
Salazar, I can't tell if you have your hand up or not.
With being sick like I am. And I just want to address whatever, and I'll have to keep it brief because I'm having a hard time speaking with being sick like I am. Not only tonight, but and I just want to echo texts and phone calls, what everybody has said on the board, and of course what you parents have said and brought to us. Not only tonight, but in your emails and in your texts and phone calls. Shows the beauty of what this Vice President Williams and I have been working on, trying to respond to everything. So deeply about, but it's been not only it's been so much, and that shows the beauty of what this community really is. All of the children, and you care so much and so deeply about not only the schools that your children attend, but held up a little sign all of the schools that all of the children in Salt Lake City School District attend. The goal, I think, for me is, I remember last meeting I held up a little sign that I kept in front of me, a board president, said, remember the goal. Is that, yes, I represent the goal, I think, for me is not only a representative of Precinct 4, but panel filled at board president, is that, yes, I represent the children of Benyon and Bryant. I also represent and even the potential solar panel field at Wasatch Playground. The reality is that I also represent all 20,000 students in Salt Lake City School District. And if our goal is to make sure that we have viable options for all of our students to not only succeed but to be prepared for the world, Board Member Jensen, I think we owe ourselves and our students the opportunity to study the schools more and further. I also want to agree with Board Member Sweat, Board Member Jensen, her and I, Board Member Anderson, board members about what that call to duty really means. The very policy. I also want to echo what Board Member Sweat said. And yes, her and I are the remaining board members that advocated for and approved the very policy that we're implementing now. Elementary school. And yes, I think Board Member Anderson, it's really hard to see Benyon on the list as their representative. And so knowing that it's my only elementary school, that but I know that my duty is to all of you and to all of our students. Now in November and December. And so I would just like to echo that. I welcome that all of the we are in a really difficult decision time period. between
think
now and
that's the
November and December.
Other kind of
But
essential
I
goal that we
welcome
have
all of the
is
opportunities,
to
if we
learn
approve the list
more
tonight,
from you,
to
from your
learn more.
students, from your
And I
schools,
think that's the
from this community,
other kind of
to
essential
make sure
goal
that
that
we're
we
making
have
sound and wise decisions
is
about
to
the future
learn
viability
more
of all
from
of our
you,
schools in our
from your
district.
students, from
Thank
your
you.
schools, from this community, to make sure that we're making sound and wise decisions about the future viability of all of our schools in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, President Salazar. I wanted to make a couple of comments, and then I'll circle back to Board Member Bade and Board Member Jensen. I echo everything that's been said by my colleagues here at the table, and similar to Board Member Bade, when I saw two of my schools on the list for further study, Newman and Mary W. Jackson, my heart also sunk into my stomach as well. I took it really hard. As other board members have said, this is a really difficult position to be in. And I have constantly, since we got this list, have stayed up late at night thinking about it, reading your emails, listening to voicemails, text messages all across the board. And it is a hard thing, and I know my colleagues are experiencing similar feelings and thoughts around it as well. Similar to what President Salazar said, is as a board vice president, and as a representative of Precinct 1, I do feel like we owe it to the community, we owe it to the children, we owe it to everyone in our community to follow the policy and move forward with further study of these 7 schools. I'm very passionate in saying that it needs to be a study. No decisions have been made. I don't know what's going to happen once December or January comes around. But I do trust in the process, I do trust in the policy, and my commitment to everyone in this community is that as you all are sending your feedback, I'm trying not to swear here because I'm really frustrated, but I will hold the Options Committee accountable in receiving that feedback, and I will be having conversations, and I know the rest of the board will as well.
What is an open classroom on?
We can't, I'm going to go ahead and move over to Board Member Bade.
Thank you. And just, to finish what I was talking about, it's like in the list also there were some schools where thousands of dollars were already spent, and so those are taxpayers' money. And one of those schools is in that list. And we need to think about those things in terms of like safety, as I just mentioned. Safety, we spend so much money in making sure our kids get from and back to school safe. There are so many schools out there in the list that are like, it's gonna hinder the possibility for those families and those children to be able to ride their bikes or walk with their families to get to school. We really have that issue. And imagine now during winter time when it's cold out there and the parent car is not working or so, and the kid has to walk to school. How are they gonna climb the hill, or what kind of a bus they're gonna take to get to certain areas? So that's one of the other issues. Also, we know one of the schools here have kids with disability. We owe it to those children not to experience nor deal with the challenges of moving to a new community, a new area. That program took at least 4 years for it to be established. And if we were to move, us as adults, as people with normal cognitive behaviors, we struggle with the change. Now imagine a child who is, innocent, and they are exposed to this. How are we going to be able to support their family in that case? That's another challenge in there. My friends, it pains me. It really, really pains me, because I would like to follow policy. Legislators are, after us, of course, but I'm sure if the legislators are listening right now as well, they will agree that whatever we are doing, whatever next step we are taking, we should take it carefully, because we owe it also to the taxpayers. Because whatever the step we take, moving forward, it's going to be quite an adjustment for us. And for me, I am going to be dissenting tonight from voting. I can't.
Thank you, Board Member Bade. Board Member Jensen, did you have additional comments?
Well, you indicated the reliance that you were placing on the options committee, and that's where I was. I really wanted to emphasize to the district and to that options committee that for me, and I believe as a board, we are relying on you to be following all of those procedures. And there's another section, a lot of what we've been looking at is section 1, but there's section 2 under that procedure as well. And in that it says procedures to be followed during each year for which an official long-term school closure study is being conducted. And it gives additional factors that need to be addressed. And I am anxious to see how you are addressing those additional factors.
Thank you, Board Member Jensen. Are there any other members of the board that would like to make additional comment?
Can I? Are we done? Yeah. Okay. Because I thought we go
Discuss
3, 2 to 1.
We can discuss it on
So
action.
I'll entertain a motion at this point to move the Boundary Options Committee recommendation to the action agenda.
I'm sorry, too, that I tried to make this early. I thought some people preferred to discuss it when it had been moved. But I move that the board do 3 things and move them to action. 1 is to approve further study of the recommended list of viable options for potential long-term closure, specifically Emerson Elementary, Hawthorne Elementary, Mary W. Jackson Elementary, Emlyn Benyon Elementary, Newman Elementary, Riley Elementary, and Wasatch Elementary. 2, to approve further study of the remaining district elementary schools for potential boundary adjustment pending the potential closure on the viable options list. And 3, approve 4 information sessions to be held in September and October throughout the district in the Glendale, Avenues Downtown, Rose Park, and Sugar House areas in order to gather community input.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I heard 2 seconds, but we'll have Board Member Sweat is the second on that one.
Nate
So we will
Salazar, yes.
vote on moving to action, starting with Precinct 1, myself, Bryce Williams, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Okay, that has been approved to action. We will now, if there is any comment.
Yeah.
Board Member Bate.
Yeah, so whatever I already see what direction this is going, but I want to, let the community know as well, echoing what Bryce said, that, the committee will have to be very clear in their messaging to us and to the community. That's one. And also to the board, we need to have a consistent communication. We can't just wait until a board meeting and we hear about it and then we're running against timeline and then we have to vote. We should have like an early notifications of every step that is taking place. I really, really, really urge the committee to be very, very consistent and persistent in actually notifying us with all the changes that are happening. And just to let you all know, we talked about the safety around our schools. There is one thing that I was talking with Council Member Darren Mono and the city also transportation and safety. And we talked about like having flashing cross lights around. And guess what? 1100 and Emerson, there is right now in the blueprint, in the plan, funding, and it is set. They're gonna have a safe crosswalk to help families cross from one busy street to another. Has the committee looked at that? If not, please, from here on, work with the city, work with the community, ask even students, go out there to school and talk to those children, and you will be able to learn so much as I'm learning a lot from my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Bade. Any additional comment from other board members? Seeing that there are none, we can go ahead and accept a motion on the Boundary Options Committee recommendations.
Parliamentarian, do I need to read the whole thing again, or can I say it differently when it's on action?
I mean, you should probably technically read it all.
Okay. So now that it's on action, I move that the board, 1, approve further study of the recommended list of viable options for potential long-term closure, specifically Emerson Elementary, Hawthorne Elementary, Mary W. Jackson Elementary, Emlyn Benyon Elementary, Newman Elementary, Riley Elementary, and Wasatch Elementary. 2, approve further study of the remaining district elementary schools for potential boundary adjustment, pending the potential closure of schools on the viable options list. And 3, approve 4 information sessions to be held in September and October throughout the district in the Glendale Avenues downtown, Rose Park, and Sugar House areas in order to gather community input.
We have that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Jensen. We'll go ahead and vote, starting with Precinct 3.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Dissenting.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes. That motion has been approved. Thank you, board members. So since we are already on the action agenda, we can take up the Pal American contract that was moved off to the consent agenda earlier this afternoon. I will entertain a motion for this item.
I would like to move that this item be tabled until the next meeting on August 15th.
We have that motion. Do we have a
Nate
second?
Salazar, yes.
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Bade. We'll go ahead and vote, starting with Precinct 4 and President Salazar.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
O'Brien Jensen, yes.
Christy Sweat, no.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Okay, that has been tabled to our September 5th board meeting.
August.
August 15th. I'm sorry, Nate.
Nate voted.
He voted yes. Yeah.
Sorry, August 15th. My apologies on that. So that concludes our action agenda. At this point, I'd like to invite Christina Kindle, Executive Director of Policy and Legal Services, for the Title IX report.
And I'm going to have Tina have to come up as well.
Wonderful.
I'll click on the slides. I'm doing it, and you can click on the slides you're doing. Am I starting? Okay.
Yes, please. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. So thank you for having us up here today. This is an annual Title IX report on athletics that we are required to give pursuant to state law. So every year you'll have an update from us in terms of athletics, specifically what we're spending, that kind of thing. And Tina is the Title IX coordinator for the district. She works closely with the district-wide athletic, the district, I don't know what her title is going to be, but the new person is going to be Emily Sutherland, who's the area director who's over secondary schools, and she's also in charge of athletics. This was something that Missy used to handle before, but now it's rolled into Emily's new position. So, but I am filling in for Emily this time, given that she's new to that position. So I'm going to turn it over to Tina to talk about what state law requires in terms of the topics that we need to cover in this report, and then we'll go over some of the numbers.
Okay. Hi, it's nice to be here with you this evening for this report. As Christina said, we have to address some very specific items in our Title IX report. Just know that Title IX is more than athletics. Title IX is a big umbrella that is about equity for our male and female students in the district, covering all kinds of academic topics, our facilities, everything. But this report is specific to our athletics programs. That's what the state has requested. So we addressed in our report the number and type of sports that we offer to our students, the number of students who are participating, the amount spent per sport, and then the amount per student. We also are addressing any discrepancies, which thankfully I don't think we have anything that is really big to address, and then any of our Title IX compliance efforts moving forward. These are the sports that we offer in Salt Lake City School District that are UHSAA sponsored sports, where we have competitions between districts. You can see the male and female sports just to make a note, the male and female sports coach together are sports that are, they have the same season. So for instance, golf, we have the boys play in the fall and the girls play in the spring. These sports play at the same time. They're coached by one coach, and they're treated more like a co-ed team. Cheerleading is, in fact, a co-ed sport. So I will turn it back over to Christina.
Right here you can see our student participation percentages in athletics. Tina nicely did the colors for the school colors. So black is west.
It's west.
Black is west, east is, gold is Highland, and red is west.
Dispute that color, but that's okay. I mean, Highland people here would not say gold, but that's okay.
What would you like me to call it?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Call it go ahead.
So the go-ahead color, you can see that all those go-aheads are female, male, and total students participating. The lovely red color, which there's no dispute about, is West numbers for females, males, and total students. Same with the blacks. You can see that West High's numbers look a little smaller in terms of athletic participation, but we're not seeing any 10% or greater disparities in these numbers. And also, again, UHSAA also covers speech and debate, theater, and one other thing. Music. And those numbers are not reflective here because, again, this is just athletics. So when we look at the 2022-23 spending for East High School, we've outlined all the various sports and then the number of athletes participating in that sport, the money spent per program, and the money spent per athlete. And when you're looking at the money spent per athlete, this is not just the fees that we collect. So it also includes any money that the district or school spends on transportation, on coaches' salaries. We look at all of that. So all of those numbers are combined in. And what you'll see, which is kind of interesting, if you look at like boys soccer, the total money spent per athlete, which would include collected fees, is like $362. And clearly our fee schedule has a much higher maximum. So when you look at these numbers, hopefully it allays some of the concerns about the fees that we're charging to participate in these sports. So again, that's the list. Same list, same columns for the co-ed and co-coach sports that Tina just discussed. I don't know, Sam, can you make any change so they can see the competitive cheer numbers, or not really because of the screen sharing thing? It's fine. Oh, thanks. And then now the clicker's not working. I don't know what's happening. Tiffany? No, I'm just kidding. So, okay. I don't know what color that is at the top border. I won't even try and say what color that is, but these are the Highland High sports. Again, one of the things you'll notice, and Tina will talk about a little more coming up, is that next year you will see boys volleyball on this list because boys volleyball has been added for the upcoming season. It wasn't there this past season, so that's not there. But again, we're not seeing anything that's causing us necessarily concerns. You might see some numbers, like if you were looking at boys basketball and girls basketball, where there's a discrepancy of over 10%. But what we're really focusing on, and when we analyze compliance with Title IX for these purposes in terms of giving access, is really looking at whether or not students have the same opportunities and access. Some differences in these numbers, I just want to clarify, if boys progress farther in a tournament, there's going to be more fees associated with farther in a competition because obviously there's going to be more travel, all that kind of stuff. And some of these coaches for some of these teams also teach, and so they get benefits, which coaches who are just volunteer coaches don't get benefits, so their benefit calculations is also in the money spent. So, yes.
Could I ask you a quick question? I know we're only partway through all the schools. I mean, you still have another school to go. But when you glance at it, just from the last two screens, is there any concern that there is more money being spent in the boys' categories than it is for the girls, or is it all just based on the number of kids that are in the program?
Well, I think it depends on the sort of the coaches in terms of whether or not they're taking advantage of all the clinics and travel, and they know the competitions and where they want to go. I mean, based on our based on the board's approved fee schedule, they all have that opportunity. Sometimes we do get new coaches who aren't aware of all the opportunities and don't necessarily take advantage of them, but those opportunities are out there and they can take advantage. So if you're looking at some of the things, it might go to that disparity in just terms of how experienced the coach is, or really how good the team is and how far they progress. But we haven't seen anything that's causing us concern, because it can all be explained in that
so you
manner.
can kind of explain it and twist, you know, not twist it, but spin it, whatever.
Spin, yeah,
spin, whatever.
I'm calling that color gold.
Color,
Thanks so
right,
much.
you are. Okay, so for me personally, I think that I appreciate you explaining it that way, but I would also then say that as a district, because we want our women to have the same access and opportunity, whether they have a green coach or a seasoned coach, that somehow through our athletic directors, we need to make sure that that is being offered, whether the coach has only been there a year or they've been there for 10 years.
Right. And
because we want to see those girls have the same opportunity as our boys.
That's going to be a focus of our training in terms of the equitable hiring and how we're training our ADs and coaches and providing that.
Okay.
And it was part of our conversation earlier this year with ADs and
Okay,
coaches.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
So again, here are the numbers, that lovely gold banner at the
And
top.
no gold around Rams or Highland.
So co-coach co-ed sports for Highland, West High. Oh Lord, that looks pink. I don't know, it should have been red. Do you know what happened to our colors? So again, West High is the only school that has a drill team, and that's why the tables are a little different. So you'll see a drill team here, which is very expensive, and that just wasn't on the other school. So that accounts for that difference that you see there. And again, co-ed sports, the same co-ed sports.
So we do look at the equitable access for all of our athletes to each of these items as we discuss Title IX. And this is driven by Title IX by the Office or the Department of Education Office for Civil Rights. Scheduling, that's one of the big things. Do the girls get the same prime time schedule that the boys do? And we do look at that and we discuss it and we make sure that that does occur. They have the same support services, including cheerleaders at the game. We all have transportation for each of our schools for their athletics. Publicity is really important. West TV, you know, making sure that the boys sports and the girls sports get equal time on that. So those are all things that we do look at. We've seen some things in neighboring districts where that has been called into question. We're constantly monitoring that and trying to make sure that we're being equitable in the access for our students. One other note is that we do have medical trainers that are available for all of our athletes. If there's an injury, if they just need to learn how to stretch something better, anything like that, we have medical trainers available that the district pays for. So our compliance efforts moving forward, we will continue. Last year, you know, we talked about fundraising and donations and how we look at those, and we'll continue to monitor those moving forward. I'll talk a little bit more about the plan for this coming year and our survey, just so that you kind of have, like, I guess, patting ourselves on the back. The state had a lawsuit. 2 of our neighboring districts were sued because female students wanted to play football, female football. And as a result of that, you know, we look every year at our interest surveys and our students' interests, and so the state has used our interest survey to help neighboring districts to kind of monitor that interest.
So I'm going to jump in for a split second. Yes. So the interest survey, just so you're all aware, Title IX requires compliance in one of 3 prongs. So you can demonstrate compliance with Title IX either by looking at your percentages and your numbers of participation, looking at whether you're regularly adding new sports, or whether or not you're in compliance with issuing a student interest survey and whether or not you're responding to that survey. So how Salt Lake City School District is in compliance with Title IX is we comply with the 3rd prong by providing that interest survey to students. And so that was something that our neighboring school districts weren't doing. They were originally complying with Title IX under their percentages. And so now they have switched to the interest survey in terms of compliance. And that's when the Attorney General's office reached out and asked for our survey to sort of use as a standard with across the state. So.
And that is compliance with Title IX on the federal level.
Yep.
So, which is a little bit different than the report that the state asks about from us. So we will monitor donations. Anything that is over $500 can impact the equitable access of sports for our students. And so that has to be reported to Emily Sutherland by our athletic directors so that we can ensure that we can offset any impacts that occur. We'll continue to deliver training, and we will investigate any Title IX compliance concerns that arise. So for this, yes?
Just one quick question. Maybe that is addressing when you say the $500 contribution. Is that what you're referring to when you continue to follow up on fundraising and donation concerns at East High and Highland High? Is that?
That's one of the things that we're monitoring.
Okay.
The other thing is that we make sure that all students have access to the same fundraiser, like the capabilities to do that. That doesn't mean that the coaches are going to do the same things. They do have the opportunity to choose. And I know that, you know, there are some fundraisers that are very, very successful that some teams do and other teams don't. But we are monitoring to ensure that everybody has equal access to those fundraisers.
Well, I think it's nice you've sent the standard on the interest survey. That's great.
It is great. So moving forward this year, we'll continue to monitor. This is going to be a learning year for Emily Sutherland, and we'll work together to monitor these things. Because she hasn't been doing this, we're going to visit every facility again, look at the locker rooms, look at the playing fields, make sure that we're doing the correct things there. We will continue to talk to our coaches about Title IX. I think a lot of things, back to that graph that has all of the different things we have to monitor, that's kind of surprising to our athletic directors and our coaches. So we'll work on that and continue to communicate about that. We'll get that training. One thing that's kind of noted on here is our scholarship advising. You may or may not be aware that we have a scholarship advisor at each of our high schools, and we are going to connect our coaches with that individual so that if we have a student who has the potential to get a scholarship for athletics, we're going to help guide them through that process. So that's one of our focuses this year. So Christina kind of touched on implementing the coach hiring processes that are equitable, so that male sports, female sports, we have an equitable process for both of those. I know there was the concern about the green coaches. That was discussed with our athletic directors and administrators, and it's something that we want to continue to talk about, getting really great coaching and then the athletic directors mentoring them into that position. And so the other thing is our interest survey, and notably we are adding boys volleyball. And that was a big ask for the last couple of years. So when UHSAA added it and you all approved it, I think we have a lot of very happy students. So.
You can hit the button for questions.
Okay.
There we go. Any final questions?
Yeah, I have any of you are watching Women's World Cup, Soccer World Cup? Yes, US is doing amazing, huh? Yeah, and so now let's talk about equity access to the fields. So I've seen our soccer fields, yeah, they're very, you know, in the sets, I don't know how to even say it, you know, in comparison to a football field. Just when you guys go walk, please walk at East Soccer Field, for example, and you will notice how many potholes are in that field. And you will notice that there is nothing in there that would prevent a ball. If it goes, it'll go to the cemetery. And I've seen so many people, they have to climb over to the cemetery so that they can pick up the soccer ball. or there is nothing in there that's high that will prevent the ball from heading over and hitting one of the vehicles in the parking lot and probably causing damage, and that's going to cost the district if that is to happen. And also, you know, I've heard so many complaints from soccer, from girls soccer team, how often they're allowed to use the football field for playing games. Every game that they play, they said they're only playing it on the grass. And that field, it's good for doing soccer workout and so. But when playing a game and you see the audience in there, I personally see the lack of equity when it comes to sports usage. And here, again, we look at, there are already so many things that are disadvantaging women in society, from the pay to so let's make sure in the world of sports that they are actually getting even better, you know. And I really, I would love to see that happening. We got some amazing,
President Williams,
you know,
I know I
athletes
asked
out
this
there,
last
women
year,
athletes out there.
Ms. Kindle, about
Thank you.
Board Member
legislation
President
that was
Salazar.
passed, that basically
President
excluded
Williams,
transgender athletes
I know I
from
asked this last
participating in
year,
sports.
Ms.
Based
Kindle,
on their
about
identified
legislation that was passed.
I'm wondering if there's ever been any
that basically excluded
reconsideration at the state
transgender
level,
athletes from
UHSAA,
participating in sports,
or even interventions
based
from
on
a
their
federal level to
identified
reconsider,
gender.
that
I'm
mandate.
wondering if there's ever been any reconsideration at the state level at UHSAA, or even interventions from a federal level to reconsider that mandate.
No, that's still on the books. We're using the second prong for that committee at UHSAA that would have to make that determination. But there might be upcoming legislation in the federal legislation and state
Thank you for the
legislation, but
update.
we'll watch that carefully. But no, that legislation is still on the books. The primary piece was struck down, but the committee is still in effect.
Thank you for the update.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kendall. Thank you, Ms. Hatch. So noting that we are at a time-sensitive stop today, we're going to go ahead and adjourn our business and reconvene at 6:58 p.m. for our Truth and Taxation hearing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good job, man. You kept it right in.
Boy, we're packing it in.
Yeah, thank you. No, I look forward to it. Yes, and I think, it's not much.
Okay, give me a second.
I think your constituents.
I think that concerns. But you're right.
Thank you. Nobody wants to stay for the tax hearing. Unless Mike's going to come up and say something. We've got 1 minute.
All right, well,
Increase your taxes.
Maybe now.
This is how you clear out a room, have a tax meeting.
all right, welcome everyone. Wanted to welcome everybody to our Truth and Taxation meeting of the Salt Lake City School Board. Today is August 1st, 2023, and the time is 7:00 p.m. At this point, we are checking to see if there's anybody who would like to speak to the Truth and Taxation.
See what I said?
All right.
I said. Mike will probably come up and say.
All right,
Of course.
Mike, the time is yours.
Thank you. Mike Harmon, a resident of Poplar Grove. And I certainly support what the board is doing with the tax rate. I would encourage the board to look at their board of voter district levy that you can increase. And I would encourage you to do that next year. You can't do it this year, but look at it next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? It is dark. I cannot see if anyone else is raising their hand. If so, come forward. All right, seeing that there is none, we will go ahead and close this Truth and Taxation hearing. Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Business Administrator Alan Kearsley.
So for the last several months through the budget process, we've talked about the certified tax rate, and the budget that was approved in June reflects an increase to the capital levy, which is offset by a decrease to the debt levy. I just want to go through a couple slides. You have them in front of you. The first one, which you can see up there, just kind of shows the 2022 tax rate was a 0.004347. So the average market value of a home between 2022 and 2023 did not change. We get that information from the county assessor's office. So the average home taxpayer in 2022 paid $1,377 in taxes. The certified tax rate, so if we didn't have this Truth and Taxation hearing and vote to increase the certified tax rate, they would have paid $1,273. With the proposed rate, with the increase of the capital levy, so the proposed rate is 0.003964, which is 0.000057 higher than the certified tax rate. The average value home would pay $1,255.80, difference of $18.06 over the year, or the 12-month period, over the certified tax rate. And then that chart below, Sam, if you could scroll up there, just kind of shows that in a chart format. Then the last page just breaks out the different levies for the 2022 year, the 2023 certified tax rate, and the proposed tax rate. And there you can see it is only the capital local levy which we are proposing an increase, but again offset by a decrease in the general obligation bond payment levy. Any questions?
Alrighty, seeing no. Go ahead.
You're good.
Seeing that there are no questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the Truth and Taxation.
I move that the board approve the adoption of a tax rate of 0.003964 for the 23-24 fiscal year, which includes an increase to the capital local levy of 0.000057 or $2.3 million.
I second.
We have a motion from Board Member Anderson, second from Board Member Bade. Any discussion? Board Member Sweat.
So my remarks have no reflection on the competence of our business administrator. I think that he has done well, for our district, and I appreciate the tax increase that's before us tonight. For me personally, I just always worry about us just putting money into the capital fund, and that there's not long-range plans. You know, thankfully, we have a really great capital plan, but just putting money into our capital budget leaves it, for me, unfettered. And I personally feel like that as we go forward as a board, that I would hope that when we decide to tax our taxpayers, even at the small amount that we're talking about, it's still an amount that impacts families. And I would hope that we would have a plan in place that we could talk about besides just saying we're putting it into capital.
Thank you, Board Member Sweat. Any other comment? Board Member Jensen?
Well, I guess I go along with that long-range planning because as we're looking at these boundary and school closure studies, I can see where with the options committee, I hope that what they will also be looking at is long-range planning. There may be needs for improvements to schools, or as was raised with some of these members of the public, that we need to have considered that this money, long-range planning, so that we can accommodate what the options committee asks us to do.
Thank you.
I can add to that.
Board Member Anderson?
Just that in the prior public meeting, some of the comments made, I think past leaders had kind of indicated to certain schools where they were on like a capital rebuild list. And as we're at like a fracture point where that has turned out to not necessarily be true, this is a good opportunity to say, if we move this and we make this investment, what we're looking for is not just the funding to be there for needs as they arise. We're looking for a real strategic vision so that people have an understanding of what the future is, especially when it may end up being different than what they've been promised for many years. So that's really important timing. Thanks.
Thank you. Any additional comment? Seeing none, let's go ahead and take a roll call vote, starting with Precinct 5.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Hond, yes.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Christy Sweat, no.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
All right, the motion is approved. That concludes our business for this evening. Thank you, everyone, and travel home safe. Thank you.
It's really weird to have working toward a timeline like